If you have ever said to yourself, I can only have a happy, fulfilled life if I have blank, then this podcast episode is for you. Now, I'm specifically addressing one of my blanks is without having a family of my own. Like I will never have a happy, fulfilled life unless I have a family of my own. Has been a limiting belief that I have had at different parts in my life. And so I decided to explore that today. Welcome to the Blueprint Breakers podcast. What is a blueprint breaker? If you live your life outside the typical traditional lifestyle blueprint, you are a blueprint breaker. We are here to start a conversation, to assemble resources, and to build a community. This podcast is for empowered women in midlife and beyond who are preparing for a powerful next era of life. My name is Amy A. Palmer. I am your host and facilitator for our conversations. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show. To stay connected, up to date, and to receive all of our free resources and gifts along the way, join us at community.blueprintbreakers.com. You may notice that I've called this episode Living Life Without Children. I stayed away from the term childless, and I stayed away from the term child-free because I've shared my story in the past, but basically neither of those terms really fit me very well. Childless feels like there's a really strong void, a less than feeling, and it just has like a very sad connotation for me. And child free is a little too joyous, a little too sort of intentional. And so neither term has ever really resonated with me as I've navigated this adult portion of my life without children. My story on why I don't have a family of my own, why I do not have children is the blueprint weighed very heavy on me. I absolutely bought into the notion that I needed to follow a certain path and do certain things in order to fulfill my purpose, in order to have like a full, happy life, and in order to be a full woman, a full human, I needed a partner, marriage, children, job, home, all the things. But I also bought into the fact that it needed to be done in a certain order. Although if you asked me, I probably would have said no, that wasn't the case. But deep, deep, deep inside me, I did kind of think it needed to be done in a certain order. And so I spent the bulk of my childbearing years focused on wanting to find a partner and finding a partner to share my life with. And that did not happen for various reasons that I've talked about in other episodes as well. So I didn't start to feel the strong pull of having a child that a lot of women experience. I didn't experience that until the latter years of my childbearing years. And I was warned about this. I had a female mentor who was a little over a decade older than me that sort of warned me that just before menopause, like you start to have like this really strong biological desire to procreate and to have children. And I definitely experienced that as I saw sort of the window closing. And then I got pregnant in my mid 40s, not intentionally, but I was extremely happy about it. But I had a miscarriage, and that only intensified my desire to be a mom and my desire to have children. So it became really strong. And the grief over not having that as part of my life, the grief over not being a mom was really, really prevalent into my mid, late 40s, into my early 50s, really, really strong, and pushed me into a depression. So why am I talking about this now? Why am I talking about this at this particular moment? It's because since I launched this podcast a couple of years ago, I joined a lot of different online communities for women without children and single women and women over 50, like all the different pieces of my current lifestyle path. And the communities for the childless and the child-free communities online, we just finished going through a holiday season, right? And once again, I was exposed to the depth of the grief of women who are childless and feel that childlessness. and are in the depths of that grief. And the holiday season is particularly difficult for them. And so I just saw a lot of different expressions of like hopelessness and just feeling, just the whole feeling of why me, and my life will never be whole, and how will I ever find joy, how will I ever connect, and not wanting to be around family and kids, and that's, I mean, so much of the holidays is focused on that, right? So it's really, really triggering for so many women. And when I first joined these groups, I expected it to be a lot of women in their 30s and 40s that were sort of in the peak of their childbearing years, that were struggling with either infertility or not finding a partner, or sort of like struggling with that initial knowledge that they may never become a mother in the way that they had hoped. And I kind of assumed that it would also have some older women like myself who were kind of on the other side of it, although you never completely get on the other side of it, but that are no longer in the depths of it, that have been able to heal and have able to build full, complete lives. And what I've been surprised to see is the number of women my age, a little younger, a little older, also in the depths of depression and isolation and loneliness, and just feeling just lack of hope that they could build a life that has meaning. So the despair was coming from like just across various age demographics and walks of life. And it's caused me to think, because I consider myself on the other side of the depths of the grief and the despair of childlessness. I'm on the other side of it. And I've grown a lot and I've healed a lot, and a lot of wonderful things have happened. And it made me sort of stop and think, how did I do it? What did I do to get to the other side? And so that's what I want to share with you today. And whether you are a woman my age or not, older, younger, whatever, who considers themselves at times in the depths of despair over not being a mother, some of what I share may be helpful and might resonate. But even if you're not, if there's a woman in your life who you think is going through this could be helpful for them. But even if there's some other aspect of your life, whatever that fill in the blank thing was, I'll never have a happy and fulfilled life unless I have blank. It could be a lifetime partner. It could be a fulfilling career. It could be a certain body type that, like, whatever it is, some of what I share today could be applicable. I'm not sure. So I'm going to share it with you. These are just some of the things that contributed to my healing. I was in therapy. I have gone through therapy at different points in my life to get through different traumas and different depressions and things like that. My last round of therapy, it's been a while now. It was like in my early 50s. I was in early menopause and in a really bad state. And I specifically looked for a female therapist, hopefully older than me, who really liked to work with women in their menopausal era and all the things that are related to that. Now, I didn't specifically seek out a therapist who also didn't have children or had some sort of disappointing aspect of their life. I didn't seek that out. And even if I had, I'm not sure how I would have looked for that. But the therapist that I found, I'll call her Mary, was exactly that. So she was an older woman. She was probably, I don't know, anywhere from 10 to 15 years older than me. I'm not sure, but she had no children. She had shared with me at different points during our therapy sessions, as it was helpful. And, she kept it very appropriate, but she shared with me that she wasn't intentionally without children, that she had wanted to have children. So she could relate to me on that level. And that meant a lot to me. And what was helpful about working with her was I was able to see a woman living an unconventional lifestyle. Now, she did have a partner. She was married. I think they were married, but she did have a significant other partner and a beautiful home. And I saw a woman who had a very full, rich, happy existence. She was doing a lot. She was having a great impact, and she had a lot of interest. She did a lot of reading. She would share things that she was reading, which I found helpful. So I very much admired her strength, her confidence, her wisdom. And I started to see someone and something that I could aspire to. And that was very, very helpful. And it helped me to be talking with somebody who really got what I was saying. Like she got me and she saw me, and that made a huge difference. One of the things that was helpful that we did during our time together, one of the things that I appreciate about her, she never dismissed or minimized my desire to be a mother. Now, she could have just immediately tried to help me come to terms with the fact that it wasn't going to happen for me, right? I mean, I was in my early 50s, menopausal, so she could have just, I guess, tried to facilitate me like getting over it. She didn't do that. She embraced my desire to be a mom that I wasn't quite ready to let go of. And she was supportive of me doing everything I could to make that happen if I wanted to make that happen. So she encouraged me to do all the research on all the different ways that I could potentially become a mother, and all the ways that that could look and what that could look like. And so I was even researching, can a woman in her 50s still carry a pregnancy? And spoiler alert, it is medically possible. It's difficult, but it's possible. Is that possible? So like exploring what's involved in that, or surrogacy, IVF and egg donors, and like all the things. And then even exploring fostering and adoption, and what would that look like? And what that did for me, because I did it all. I looked into all of it. But what that did for me is it gave me my power back. And I felt less like a victim of like this was happening to me, that the cards had been stacked against me and I was unlucky and things didn't work out the way they were supposed to, and it was unfair and all of that. And it just gave me back some power and control of knowing, well, I could take these actions. I could take these actions if I wanted to. And I actively chose not to. So I was able to sort of let go a little bit of like the victimish feeling that I had been experiencing. The other thing that was very helpful for me during this healing process was, although not necessarily at the time, it took a long time, and I've shared this before, but I'll share it again here. My therapist said to me, when you look at your grief over not being a mother, how much of that grief is really yours and how much of it belongs elsewhere, belongs to other people, belongs to the world, etc. I was not ready to hear that and fully have that conversation at the time that we had it. I was very defensive and very protective and possessive of that grief. And I had still been in a little bit of the victim kind of a mindset thing. But over time, as I continued to do my work, what she explained to me is if I look at my grief like a pie chart, and I broke it up into pieces based on who or what claimed the different pieces of that pie, what would that look like? And over time, I started to realize that there was a relatively small piece of the pie that was truly my grief over not having that experience of being a mother, of having a child in my life, of going through that whole experience, of experiencing that unique kind of love. There was a section of the pie that absolutely was that grief. And then as I looked at all the other pieces, it was family expectations, society expectations, how I'm prioritized or not prioritized in society, how I'm viewed, my impact on the world, my legacy, my meaning, like all the things, dying alone, like who's going to take care of me when I'm old, like all of these external thoughts and fears and expectations was the majority of that pie representing my grief. So again, that helped me, because if I could just learn to let go of those external pieces that didn't belong to me, and that took some work, then I could just focus on the small piece that really and truly was my grief. So when I looked at the external pieces, it was around reframing my perspective and challenging the thoughts and the myths and the lies that I was telling myself that was coming from what I was thinking was coming from society, family, the world, etc. I started to learn as I peeled it back that marriage plus family does not necessarily equal happiness, fulfillment, impact on the world, worthiness, all of that. That it was not a clear equation. There was no guarantee that if you do this, this, and this, you're going to get that. And of course, I saw that all around me happening. I also learned that I was no more or less happy, fulfilled, etc., than any of my, sisters in the world who are married, have children, like have all the things that quote unquote you're supposed to have. My happiness and fulfillment and worthiness was no better, no worse. We all had our joys and our upsides. We all had our sorrows and our low points. There was no clear equation that I wasn't meeting or filling, and coming to terms with that has been a journey. I felt those pieces, those other external pieces of the pie, like slowly but surely drop away and fall away. Now, I'm currently reading Mel Robbins' latest book, Let Them. And if you are somebody who has any of these feelings of grief or hopelessness over some unfulfilled dream or unfulfilled portion of your life, highly recommend Mel Robbins' book, The Let Them Theory. And I didn't have it at the time that I was going through this particular healing process, but it has confirmed and validated everything that I went through and everything that I've been doing to heal. And the basic premise of the Let Them Theory is what other people are doing or saying that's having an impact on how you feel, let them. They're making that insensitive comment at Christmas about when are you going to find someone, or when are you going to have kids, or whatever it is. Let them have their comments, let them have their thoughts, and let go of what other people are doing and saying. And then moving on to the let me part of the theory, let me take appropriate action for me. So what am I going to do based on their actions? Am I going to set a boundary? Am I going to ignore it? Am I going to minimize my time with that person? Whatever it is. But once again, the key to this theory is taking back that power, taking back that action, releasing that external influence, and taking back control over what you do have control over. So highly recommend that book to help. All of that reframing and peeling back and letting the other pieces of the pie go, that left me with that small-ish piece of pie that was truly my grief. And I will tell you, it doesn't go away completely permanently. I always have, twinges of ache and pain at different points, always have momentary thoughts of regret and I work on those thoughts. It's not all rainbows and butterflies, but what I did for that small piece of grief is, I think it's similar to when we've lost a loved one. Like when we've lost a loved one over time, like it might start out really, really painful, and we have to get the emotions out, and we have to have our crying sessions, and we have to sort of go through all the feelings, and we might be angry. We go through all the steps, and we have memories. And then sometimes years later, even when we think we're quote over the grief, we may have like out of nowhere, like this sharp pain that comes out of nowhere, like in our gut. That's how it happens for me with some of the people that I love that I've lost. But then it usually fades and softens. And generally, I'm able to have memories and good memories and feel good about the person and missing them, but loving them all at the same time. When you're grieving over something that's like a lack of something that you don't have, and it's not necessarily a person, it's a little different. When I was in the depths of it, yes, it was despair, it was hopelessness. Nothing's ever gonna be right in my world, etc. But over time, it does start to soften, and other doors start to open, other windows start to open. And the way that I got it to soften was I wanted to tap into the joyous pieces of what that experience would have been. So the joyous pieces of being a mother, having that connection with babies and children and young people, and being able to see the world through their eyes, and being able to experience things with them, laughing with them, having fun with them, having experiences with them, helping them and being there for them during times when they need to. So sort of like that nurturing side of me, I decided to like cherish that. I joined the Big Sister program. I had a little sister for many, many years, and that filled so many pieces of me with joy. spending time with her and having an impact on her life. I have a niece and nephews I've been able to enjoy. I love being around babies and friends' babies and celebrating them and I actively seek out opportunity to just cherish time with children and babies and loved ones. I mean, I worked in schools for like a decade and loved having conversations with the kids and hearing how things were going for them. And that every single bit of that helped in my healing and helped me to know that I can continue to have that at any time. No, it's not the same as being a mother. I understand that. But it was the medicine that I used to help soften that particular grief. Now it comes up occasionally at specific times, not around the holidays. I love the holidays, and I love the fact that the holidays are focused on children. I love watching children. I love being around children. I love it when we celebrate kids. But generally speaking, I've been able to reframe the perspective that I've had on my life and look at, where do I find joy? Where can I have an impact? Who or what can I nurture to feel that level of fulfillment? I'm hoping some of this resonates with you, whether it's over not having children or some other aspect of your life. Maybe these tools can translate. And so if I summarize it real quickly, I found a mentor, a therapist, a mentor who understood, who had been where I had been and was like further down the road and could really help me. I explored every option and I took back my power by exploring what all my options were. What actions could I take? What could I do to make it happen? What are all the different ways that it could come to fruition? And really, really took back control of the situation. So that was like number 2. Number 3, I looked at my whole grief and pie charted it out. How much of it was just mine? How much of it belonged to the world? I challenge you to do the same with yours. And you may be able to let go of some of those pieces of grief and then reframing your thought process around those pieces of grief that belong elsewhere. What are your thoughts around it? How can you reframe that? And then what can you do to nurture and cherish and honor and like heal that piece of grief that's left behind? And what can you do with that as you move forward? I'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts? What is the area of your life that you're filling in that blank with, or that you're working to get over? You can email me, amy@amyapalmer.com. And I love to hear what your thoughts and experiences are. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing this episode with anyone that you feel could potentially benefit. Have a wonderful week. Keep on breaking those blueprints and redesigning your own.